Welcome to the Eric T Conversation. I'm Eric T. I got a really awesome special guest today. I got retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Jason Lathy. Started off as a 88 Mike, a driver, became an infantry officer, served 4 years in combat, various positions from Afghanistan to Iraq, became military intelligence officer, ended up in cybersecurity, Bronze Star, combat infantry badge. Colonel, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate you joining me tonight. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me, Eric. Good to see
So
you.
we got a little conflict going on. You probably first time in 25 years you're not part of it. How's it feel?
Yeah, it does feel kind of strange, man, to be honest. Yeah, it feels very strange, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a lot of people that are still in. You talk to any of those guys?
Yes, one of my really good friends is down in Georgia, and he's wrapped right up into it. So he's working 12-hour days, 7 days a week without a day off, and he's within like 6 months of retiring. So they're working him down to the last minute.
Nice. Okay, so you
Yes.
started off as an infantry guy. Now, what was that like when you were infantry? Like, I know you were a platoon leader, company commander. So you did a couple of years at
Yeah.
that. So what tours did you do during that time?
Well, when we left, because when we served together, we were in IOBC. I was down there for quite a long time, actually. I ended up not leaving until September. I went to MLOC, which is the Infantry Mortar Leader course. So when I showed up to the 101st, I immediately went to a platoon. I went to a line platoon, and I was in that line platoon for about 6 months. And the mortar platoon leader decided he was going to get out of the army, and they had no one else who was mortar leader qualified, so they put me into that position, and then I led that platoon for a year and deployed to Hawija, Iraq, for a year. And I served in Iraq with that platoon for 6 months. Our primary mission during that time was to train the Iraqi army, and really be the first security element to a military training team, or a MIT team, is what they became known later on. Did that for 6 months, and then I moved to an AT platoon, which is a motorized infantry platoon, and led that platoon for the rest of the deployment until we finished out. And then the entire time I was an infantry guy, I was a PL. So I was a platoon leader for 3 years. I went back to Fort Campbell, trained up the new crop of lieutenants before I moved to Arizona and became a intelligence officer. And then deployed back to Iraq about 12 months later on a 15-month deployment in northern Iraq. I was the targeting officer for 1st Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division. I was also the JSOC LNO. And what we did there is we did HVI, high value individual hunting, man hunting, and tracking down the what would later become the Islamic State of Iraq. Then they were called just whatever group at the time, 1920s Ref Brigade. You had the Islamic State. There were all these different groups, and they just formed under a banner later on. I left Iraq in 2007, or I'm sorry, correction, 2008. Went back to Fort Campbell, took the military intelligence company, trained them up for a year and a half, and then deployed for a year to Afghanistan. We were up in the mountains in the north, in the Nuristan region, and was there for a year. And then following that deployment, I was involved in a non-combat injury during a sandstorm. A big 100-pound box fell on my head.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
it was a pretty significant head injury. So I got evac to Bagram, and then
Bagram, I know it well. Got great
yeah,
massages there.
yeah, yeah. It was definitely definitely a weird stop, because here I am, like in my PT uniform, and I got hit in the head. Don't have a weapon or anything, and I'm being evac'd on a helicopter with like these Air Force pararescue guys.
Yeah.
And all I remember is like waking up on the helicopter, and they've got like masks on. They look like Darth Vader.
Right.
And I'm like, where am I? Kind of thing. But yeah, I get up there, and I went through the whole evaluation, and then I ended up returning to duty. Went back to the FOB, finished out the deployment there, and then when I came home, I started having some significant neurological problems. So I was stationed down here in the DC region to go to Walter Reed, and that's how I ended up with at U.S. Cyber Command.
So you
I
got so you
served
got
at
into
U.S.
so,
Cyber
so you got
Command.
a
Go ahead.
you got in cyber command while you were over there, Walter Reed. That's where they transferred
Hmm.
you over there. Okay, what's that like?
Yeah.
What's that
So
like? What was that
it,
like doing transferring from a guy that was out in the sands all the time, and now you're in DC hopping with all the brass.
yeah, that was a culture shock in itself. I
Yeah,
remember because at this point I've been in the 101st for like 7 years, and I was in the same brigade for 7 years. So
how's that? How does that
I
happen?
was
How does a guy stay there for 7 years?
I was institutionalized. Yeah, man. Um, yeah, so I mean, yeah, like I transitioned out of infantry. I went to the career course, and then I went back there on a by name request. And ended up staying there through company command. And then once my company command time was over, there's really three things you can do after as a force com guy. You can either go be an OT OC observer controller, you can go do joint time, or you can go to school. And I wasn't interested in going to school, so I chose the joint route.
Okay, so from infantry guy to intelligence,
Mhm.
what was there any kind of different transition that you had to have? You said it was a culture shock a little bit, but from going to a combat arms guy to a guy, you know, in a place where you're getting briefings all day of all the crap that's going on in the world, what was that like for you?
I think the first thing that really starts to hit home when you leave like a very tactical formation and you move to a strategic level is that you start to see that not everyone supports the warfighter. There's a lot of high level national priorities that are being answered by the Army specifically, um, and the rest of the services, and you start to realize that you're just a very very small piece in the whole joint construct or joint force. You go from kicking doors in, patrolling, hunting bad guys, and you think that the entire military is doing this, but then once you leave that, you've realized that there's a very small uh, section of the military that's actually doing that.
All the other stuff happens, and then all right, they put those guys in. Go clear some
Yeah.
buildings. Make sure all the bad guys aren't hiding behind couches, right?
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
so right now with what's going on, a guy coming from the MI place, from what you've known of all the years you've been in it, was this something that we should have been aware, we should have been worried about with Iran, with their capabilities and where they were progressing as far as you know?
Well, I think Iran is a very difficult. First off, I think the Middle East is an extremely difficult region. It is the melting pot of society. You've got so many different groups of people there. There's so many different cultures, and it's just all kind of put together. Iran, they're not Arab. They're Persian, so they're actually ethnically different than the entire region that's
Right.
over
Yep.
there. So it's they've got their own culture, their own beliefs, and their own political objectives that they want to achieve. And unfortunately, it comes to the detriment of their neighbors. I mean, they're a bully. They're an aggressor. They're a harbor of terrorism. So yeah, I think that this is something that probably should have happened a long time ago, to be honest. However, yeah, it's a very difficult situation to
Like a lot,
really
lot, lot of people
understand.
forget, and you're old enough to remember, that they took our hostages in
Mhm.
1979 when the new regime came in there. They, the SS Cole, the Marine Corps barracks. I mean, they've been a nuisance for quite a long time. And from what I was understanding, that when they pushed out the Shah, and now they got the Ayatollah came in there. A lot of the Persians that have fled there blame Jimmy Carter for helping with the CIA pushing those guys out and gave them that regime because a bunch of college students, sounds familiar. A bunch of college students were pissing and moaning. They they wanted things to change, and the United States like, yeah, we'll help you out with that. And then look, so in a way, I feel like we're righting a wrong that we did 50 years ago to that place.
Hmm. I could see that.
And I just think that, with what's going on right now, and you being a guy that was obviously been a lot of areas in the Middle East, you have an interesting perspective of what, because combat, as you know, it's not fun for anybody. Nobody wants to have to go fight in a war and lose anybody. One loss of life is tragic as it is, losing 8, 10, 100,000, whatever. But at some point, do you think we're going to have to put boots on the ground in this territory?
I don't know. That's a really hard question. I mean, from a military planning perspective and from, from a military perspective, like, you can't win a war without boots on the ground. You can't win a war strictly with air power. That's been demonstrated numerous times. You have to have a ground force position on the ground that's ready to go and clear and is dedicated and determined, and more determined than the enemy. And I think, in this certain situation that we're dealing with now, I don't know if we've degraded their defenses enough to start to really even having that conversation, because we do not want to put, in my opinion, Jason Lathy, we do not want to put our forces at risk in an area where they can be, long range targets, standoff. We want to be able to position our forces in a position where we have the advantage, and I'm not sure that they're degraded to the point to where we have the advantage at this time.
So so let's say they get to the point where, what do you think their breaking point is, that where they're going to be like, all right, we've had enough, because we're taking out leader after leader after leader. And I'm sure you've seen enough information about these guys that run the shows over there. Like, how deep are they? How deep do they go? Is it going to be a point where there's got nobody? They got Carl on the street holding a sign like, "Hey, you, come on in. You're next up as the Ayatollah."
Well, Eric, I think their regime is built for survival. I think most Middle Eastern countries regimes are built for survival. We saw it in Iraq, right? We toppled the regime, and immediately the regime forces consolidated and started an insurgency against us. And these countries, they're very layered, right? I mean, they've got, just the way that they're organized. They have an external military, the Artesh, that is really like the conscripted military. That's not as professional as the IRGC. You have the IRGC that's more of a protector of the regime itself, and then you have these religious policemen that are going around enforcing all of the religious police
Yeah, those are
laws.
guys getting blown
And
up right now on the motorcycles.
yeah, and I think, and at the end of the day, like, they've been around for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, and it's something that I think is very, very difficult to break. Um, and we really when we go into these areas, we always take the Western mindset to it. We're very task oriented, right? The West is very task oriented. Like,
Right.
we go out, go to the grocery store, we get our groceries, and we come home. You go out in the Middle East, you go get your groceries. You're gonna talk to the guy on the street. You're gonna go down and talk to the guy that's the mechanic down the road, and you've got like a network of people that you're associated with. Um, so, I don't think that it's out of the ordinary that they are as resilient as they are, just because of the way that their culture is. They're very tribal. So they've got their professional culture, then they've got their friends, but then they've also got their tribal um, network of people. And a lot of times, we I think the Americans, our military in general, like, when we start our planning assumptions, we assume that, hey, we're going to be able to bomb them to a point to where their nationalistic pro-democracy people are going to stand up and go against the government. But I'm not sure if they even have that capability at this point, because you have to have weapons, you have to have organization, you have to have a way to support those forces. So it's very hard to tell.
So you think we have
Um,
CIA? You think we have CIA on the ground there in the country right now? What do you think?
I don't know, Eric, but I would assume that there are um, some kind of network that is in communication with our intelligence somehow. Like I'm sure that there's some kind of human network going on there, but as far as like people on the ground, I really could never speak to that.
So you really think so? At the point where, in order for them to really kind of get a change over there, we've got to look at the people that are there living there. The ones that kind of started all this, the Gen Zers, because those are the guys that were taken out, the 35-year-olds and younger
Yeah.
guys that they were mass killing 35,000 plus that we know of, and
Right.
like they just you heard they just hung that wrestler. You hear about that?
Yeah, I saw that. I
That a
did. It's
19-year-old,
tragic.
guy was one of the protesters against the regime, and they just hung a national wrestler that was protesting the regime. So from I guess it's interesting to say if they're going to be able to have enough, as you were saying, people that are going to actually stand up and actually fight back, because some of them are, but like you said, you've got to have weapons, you've got to have cash and stuff going on where you can do it, and who knows if they're even going to be able to have access to that.
Right.
So let me ask you, as far as with the way the military has gone. Okay, so you went through several presidencies, several presidents
Mhm.
that were different. You had Trump. You were at the beginning of Bush, I guess, and Obama. Then you had Trump 1, Biden, Trump 2. I know you've been out for just a little while now. Not even almost a year. But your difference, as from what you see, what Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, has been saying, create the war fighter, has the transition of how the military was prior when you first went in to the middle of your career to the end of your career. What do you see the difference in from all that?
Well, I mean,
Is it has it
when we
your
first
last
came
end
in,
was it getting better towards the end of your career, or
well, I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of better is, right? Like when we first came in, you remember what it was like. There was a handful of people that had been to combat, 101st, 82nd Ranger Regiment, some special forces guys, maybe. And there wasn't a lot of combat experience. Fast forward, 2 or 3 years, oh 07, oh 08, around in there, like now the military is combat hardened, right? And that's our focus. That's all our focus was. We didn't really focus on anything else. We had the R4 Gen cycle where you would deploy for a year, you would come home, you would refit people with PCS, you get new guys in, you would train, and then you would go and deploy again. And
how
that
long
was
did
the
you
model.
guys stay home? Because I was the guard guy, so how long did they
Mhm,
you were usually typically a year in country.
mhm.
Then how will you be home?
Yeah.
You're home 6 months, and then you spin you up again.
Well, they tried to get it to where you were home for 15 months.
Okay.
The first two deployments that I went on, it was exactly 12 months. And then on my third deployment, we were back for 15 months, and before we deployed again for a year. So I did a 12-monther, I did a 15-monther, and I did another 12-monther in pretty quick succession. And it was only like 1 year. Actually, it was the first year. It was so I got there from IOBC. I trained up for 9 months. We deployed. Was gone for a year. Came home. I was home for 9 months. Deployed. We were gone for 15 months, and then when we came back, I was home for 15 months and deployed for another year. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so they extended the deployment so that they could give people the maximum amount of time home, because if we were on the 12-month cycle without having the National Guard in support, because if you remember, after the initial invasion, we mobilized the entire National Guard, and you were one of those guys, and we sent them in there, and then basically had no plan after that, right? So now then we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to sustain this war that could go on forever? We just started just rotating forces in there. That was the number one mission for the Army. So, the majority of the people that were serving had 2, 3, 4, 5 deployments. My platoon sergeant, he had like 7 deployments, something
Wow.
like that.
Wow.
When it was all said and done, like 7 years deployed, like that's crazy.
So those guys that, the hardened, you said the hardened guys that were there, the guys that had all that combat experience, let's say
Yeah.
let's just say 90% of everybody got their patch, right? Got their right shoulder patch,
hmm
whatever. So the attrition of those soldiers that had that experience started leaving towards the end of the 20 teens.
Well,
And
there was
then,
a
then we got a
there
new
was a
ramp of
political
soldiers
thing
that
that
came in.
happened back in 2014, 2015, around in there where we had sequestration. The Army took the biggest hit on sequestration. So our promotion rates, just on the officer side, went from like, 70% to major to like 30%.
Wow.
And, so there was a hard cut in the officer side, and then we were giving people their walking papers. We were sending NCOs to QMP boards, quality control boards, where they would get their records looked at before they would go in front of a promotion board. I think that's how it worked. And they would determine whether or not they could continue to serve. And a lot of guys got put out of the Army that way because they had something derogatory information in their record from
Really?
before.
Oh,
So a lot of people were getting sent out of the Army. And I think the hardest thing to deal with that personally is a lot of my friends got wrapped up into that. A lot of guys that I knew very well, guys that I had served with in combat, like solid dudes. Even guys who were on deployment got their walking papers while they were deployed. It was really
wow.
tragic. Guys who had made major, like, just got promoted. They were in the ILE, the intermediate level education, that we give to the majors whenever they pin on. Like, they were in the school and then they were told to leave the Army. And when that happens, they only give you 7 months to get out. And so you have to be out by the first day of the seventh month. So they did that. They also did a 15-year retirement, which it was called TERA. I don't even remember what it stands for, but if you were at 15 years, they would allow you to retire early at a reduced pension, and
Okay.
and you had no choice. They just sent you out.
So this is during Obama's years then.
So it did start during Obama, yes. And I don't remember what year. I know it was around that time because I was in Cyber Command. And I was an executive assistant to a 2-star at the time, and we were working to try to figure out how we could, you know, basically keep people, like, good quality people in the military without, like, them going in front of these boards, because basically if you didn't have 3 out of 5 top blocks, you were gone.
Really?
Yeah, it was rough, man, there for a while.
So
And then
they
just
got rid
over
of a lot of
time,
good
but it
soldiers.
was just kind of funny, right? Because just how, like, it was very, I don't know how to say it. It wasn't ironic. It was just coincidental, I guess. But the guys who got cut the most were the guys with the most experience. It was the dudes who were told that if they volunteered to go on a MIT team and deploy for a year on these small teams that we made and on active duty. They were basically like small green, like the Green Berets were out kicking indoors and stuff. So
Right.
we needed to train the militaries. So they created these groups of officers and NCOs to be a part of these MIT teams. And a lot of those guys ended up not making it to the next rank because that job was no longer considered an important job. So that's really what happened. You had dedicated guys that were volunteering to go on these very exquisite missions, because they were told that, hey, it's going to look good on your career, but at the end of the day, if you don't walk the track, you're not going to get promoted. It's just the way the Army is, right?
So the fighting force was probably cut back significantly during that time.
Significantly, significantly.
You made it. Good for you. Guess you did okay with those boards.
It's a lot of work,
Is that a
man.
lot of
Hard
work?
work, long days.
Nice, man. So from we
Right
got
place at the right time with the right people.
so you got Obama cut the military, then you got Trump came in 16, 17. Did they spin people back up? There's more people coming in? Were the fighting force getting better, or is it kind of the same status
that
quo?
is a really difficult. It's really difficult to really understand that point because like I kind of personally went into this issue where I started moving every year. I moved three or four times in 3 or 4 years. So it was like, I moved from here to IOE, from IOE to Texas, from Texas to Kuwait, from Kuwait to back to here. Like I was bouncing around. And then of course, I think if we were to say that the biggest shift was when Trump came on board the first time. The first thing that we did was that we surged, excuse me, our combat power that we had against ISIS, and that was probably the biggest threat at the time. I was a part of the first counter ISIS task force under Obama. We were hand selected as the Third Corps headquarters to stand up the first counter ISIS task force, Operation Inherent Resolve, and and then we went forward and moved into an empty building, no computers, no anything, and our job was to basically set this place up, get the computers in there, get our intel systems up, and then start hunting and figuring out where the ISIS was and how do we destroy them. And so we were a part of that element that dropped the first bombs on ISIS from an American standpoint.
And that was under
Um,
Obama, right?
that was under Obama, yes.
So what was the difference between when Obama did it and Trump was able to wipe him out? What in your opinion was the difference?
Well, I don't think it was political. I think the difference is because leading up to Trump being elected in 2016, we had a year of time in 15, 16 where we were surgically striking. We were surgically striking ISIS and disrupting them, dismantling their infrastructure, destroying their oil. That's how they were making money. They were selling oil. They were pumping oil and then selling it on the black market. So we started destroying that. We started destroying their oil transport where they were moving it across into Syria and selling it on the black market. We started to target their foreign fighter facilitation networks as they're coming through into Iraq and into Syria and from overseas. We were working with the interagency to bring all assets to bear to try to disrupt that as much as possible. We started to target their C2 network, where we were striking their communications, we were striking their leaders, and with close um, work or coordination with JSOC, we were able to get a lot of that done because conventionally we were going after the hard targets. We'd hit the buildings, we would hit their infrastructure, we'd hit their communication sites, telecommunications, internet sites, things of that nature. And then the JSOC guys would go out and take care of the leaders like they do. Um, so we had a pretty good it was a pretty good dance between conventional and special operations when we were getting that done. And I think that when Trump came in, where what he had that Obama didn't had was that they had a dedicated ground force with the Kurds. We had the Green Berets
Okay.
that were forward, and they led that fight into the city. So we were able to drop the bombs, get that ground force ready and positioned. So now when we left, that ground force was positioned and ready to move in there. Now, that's not to say we didn't have Americans on the ground, because we did. We had to air assault an artillery unit forward pretty far north in order to get into range to support the front line for that engagement in the Mosul. In the Mosul, whenever when the Iraqi army started that assault. So we had to. There was a lot of logistical work that went into that. There was a lot of extra targeting efforts that went into that to try to clear the area so that when our guys landed there, they didn't have a fight, and they didn't. They landed, no shots fired. So
So when Trump got in there, he took him out. There was all the leg. A lot of leg work was in preparation. What you're saying
but most of the
was
legwork was pretty much done at that point. It became it's like we were doing. You've got strategic targeting, deep fight. You've got the close fight, which is like your close air supported ground forces. We were doing a lot of the strategic stuff. So we were doing a lot of deep strikes, hitting hitting infrastructure leaders, like strategic level type of targets. And then once you have that ground force on the ground, it just transitions to a, the ground force is moving and you're flying air in support of them, close air support. And of course all the organic capabilities that they have as well, right? And all the ISR and the drones, of course. So, it was something. It was really neat to be a part of.
So now that you did all that, now you're
Mhm.
near cyber warfare. How bad is it right now? How bad is it that the United States is constantly battling countries, foreign countries, and probably people here in the United States trying to integrate into our systems and hack our systems from the government level all the way down to the bottom? How bad is it that people probably have no freaking clue what's going on? Could we turn on our computers, we go on the internet, but in the background, there are guys like you that are fighting all that stuff off. How crazy is it right now?
I would say it's pretty crazy. I mean, if you turn on a couple podcasts, watch a couple documentaries, and you can really get an idea on what the cyber threat looks like, because you're right, it comes from everywhere. Nation states, it comes from criminals, it comes from hobbyists. Um, so, but I will tell you this, the military is not doing anything inside the borders of the United States, right? Like we're defending our networks inside the borders. We're defending, the DoD networks, and then really it's really up to the private industry to defend company networks and information networks within the United States. The DoD really doesn't have a job in that regard. But
Well,
they're
let's say if a company like a country like China, for instance, let's say they're trying to
yeah.
hack our systems. They're not trying to hack into the Pentagon, but they're trying to hack into, I don't know, Florida Power and Light to try to
Mhm.
shut down a grid. Would you guys help with that, or is that like the Florida Power and Light cyber security team that works for them that tries to help that? Or do you say, hey, listen, we got a threat from China is potentially going to come at some, American state grids to shut you down? Is there anything like that?
It's a really tight rope to walk, really. These cybersecurity elements that are a part of these companies, they are extremely competent in what they do, and most of the time, like their IT shops and their cybersecurity elements are able to defend their networks just fine without the use of DoD forces.
Oh, so there, you guys don't happen, you don't hop and say, hey, by the way, we have a threat. We heard that someone's going to be coming in. So you don't you don't have to communicate with civilian corporations that are, you know, infrastructure type of corporations that you guys don't get. You don't get they don't, I guess I'm trying to find it. You don't get any different information that they would find out from themselves by people trying to penetrate their systems.
Not to my knowledge.
No. So
Yeah.
as far as a cyber warfare for us, do we do anything? Are we going after them at all? Is it a back and forth all day long?
You know, the DoD has some pretty good capabilities. The Joint Force has some pretty good capabilities. Um, and they're extremely competent. I mean, if you look when the Cyber Force stood up in 2017, we went out and we recruited some of the best young men and women that the military could buy, and we have employed these individuals, within the DoD. They are outstanding soldiers. They're smart, they're competent, they're everything that you would think that an elite soldier would be. It's a very small force. The military cyber force is very small, but they're extremely capable.
So I guess there's a lot. So I guess you got a lot of white hat guys that you guys recruited to bring in.
A lot of guys, it's not really about when you're looking at these individuals, right? Like you can pretty much you can train a lot of people. So we're just looking for the right person, right? They have the right mentality, they have the right skills, they have uh, they're they're curious kind of people, and we basically bring them in the military and train them in what they need to do once they come here. And we provide them some really really good training. These guys are getting out of the military and they're going and they're working at high level tech companies, in Silicon Valley and others. So I mean, yeah, the training, the quality of training they're getting in the Army and in the Joint Force in general is second to none.
So is it strictly out of DC?
What's that?
Is it where is it? Where's a cyber thing? Is it in Washington? Is it in DC? Is that where the main focus is, or is there an
Oh no,
operations
they're
centers
spread all over.
all over?
We've got cyber forces in Georgia. We have them here in Fort Meade, Maryland. They're in Texas. They're all over. And then there's a preponderance of the force that's in the National Guard as well.
So since you're a guy that spent a career in the military, and you know the news that just came out with Joe Kent, right? He just resigned. Super high speed war fighter. He resigned. Do you hear what's going on with him now? That he was under FBI surveillance or FBI investigation? Yeah,
I haven't seen any of that.
Yeah, man. He was apparently they've been investigating for several months for leaking classified information out. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, I thought you'd have a neat perspective. Yeah, he resigned and gave the intelligence. I don't know. I mean, the intelligence that he thinks apparently he hasn't been on any briefings in quite a while. So they've excluded him on some of these intelligence briefings. So what the story is now is that he hadn't had any intelligence briefings about Iran. He hasn't had any information about that at all because he hasn't been privy to any information because he was under investigation from the FBI for divulging, intelligence to individuals. Mainly, probably, I guess they're alleging it might be Tucker Carlson or somebody like that. So I'm just, when you're a counterintelligence guy, I guess when you get to the point, just your opinion on this, if you're not in briefings anymore, I guess the writing would be on the wall that maybe they don't want you there.
Yeah, I mean that's I don't have any insight on any of that, man, to be honest with you.
No, just your opinion. What do you think?
I mean, I would assume, if I'm not being brought in on meetings and things of that nature, then there's something going on. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I read his resignation letter. I don't know him personally, but I know people who know him, and a lot of people speak very highly of him. I know he did recently do a podcast with Tucker Carlson, which I have not set and watched yet. But yeah, I really don't know how that process works, man, to be honest with you.
So how's it feel to be out?
I love it, man. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, you haven't grown a beard yet, or can you grow a beard?
Yeah, I don't think so.
You got that facial hair. You just can't grow a full beard yet.
Well, I tried it.
You tried it,
and it just didn't look right on me, man.
No?
Like I'm a little gray, so I decided to cut my hair, cut the gray out, and just kind of go back to being clean shaven.
I
just look funny. I didn't recognize myself.
No, yeah, I figured a lot of other guys get out there, let their hair grow, get a beard. First time in my life I don't have to shave every morning. So that's good, man. So you're doing well.
It's a pain in the ass too, right? Because like you got to shave, and then you get it all over everything, and so then I would rather just not have to deal with it.
Yeah, trust me, I get yelled at all the time for getting whiskers, and you gotta keep it tight. You gotta keep it tight. You can't just have I've tried to grow it out once. It looked awful. I got curly hair on my face. It doesn't come out very well. So I try to keep it groomed. And then every time I get yelled at, the bathroom just got cleaned, Eric. I'm like, well, you just happen to be on the same cycle of me wanting to trim my beard a little bit. So that's good. So now you're in a civilian. You're doing that now. So you work? Are you still working in cyber security type of field,
Yes,
or
I work for a tech company.
good transition from military life to this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good transition. It was fairly. I did not have an issue. I've heard there's a lot of horror stories out there um, where people have a hard time finding work and everything. But I think that number one, I think if you can talk to people, you're fine. Secondly, I think that the amount of preparation that I put into my transition paid off. And I think that the resources that the Army has, specifically the TAP resources, the Transition Assistance Program, I think that is a very solid program. And if you take advantage of it, then you can't fail. It's impossible. I mean, they set up a LinkedIn profile for me. They wrote my resume,
Oh wow.
and they do that for everyone. Like, so
So what'd you say?
it was a
So if
very good
there's a young
experience.
man or woman out there that's like, you know what, I want to. I mean, you weren't a computer guy, right? You know, do
Mm-mm.
cybersecurity guys got to be computer guys?
No, I was not a computer guy at all. I'm still not.
So what is it? What does it entail? I'm just for my own knowledge. What does it entail? You go to work, and what does it entail when you're in there doing cyber warfare for the United States military? Is it
I don't know.
you had a desk and just kind of watching screens, or
Yeah, pretty much. You're just
really
sitting there.
is it sitting there? Like, hey, someone needs to check on that right there. Someone needs to check on that.
No, I got to tell you, the cyber force is a great career field. If I was to recommend anyone that was thinking about joining the military, I would definitely tell them to pick, cyber. I would say, hey, take a look at cyber. It may be a little technical for you. You may not understand it, but just give it a look. Because at the end of the day, like it is it it is a really really good MOS in the military, and it's very tight knit. Everyone knows everyone, so
Okay.
like it's very very small.
What do you think
So
AI is going to be transitioning to the point where we're not going to need humans doing the security anymore?
I think AI is interesting, man. I think AI can be a great tool uh, to assist humans in what we do, especially in a very technical role where you have to look at large amounts of data and synthesize it and come to a decision quickly. I think that AI could assist in that, but I don't believe that you could take the human out of the loop. I still believe that you have to have that individual who has the experience and the training and the knowledge and the understanding that once you look at what the AI is spitting out there, you have to look at it objectively and with your experience and understanding how everything kind of works. Like if you're looking at it from a military perspective, right? You're not going to tell the AI, hey, planned an attack on objective Charlie and not and let him go all by
Right.
himself. Like you still got
Yeah.
you still got to worry
you
about
you want
Sergeant
a
Smith
person
and
doing
Staff
that?
Sergeant.
Yeah.
There's still a leadership component there
Right. Right.
that is extremely important.
So
So
so we're probably years, if not a decade or two, away from AI really kind of being involved to a point where you're not going to need
well,
as many people looking at the intelligence and the data that's coming in.
I mean, from an just from a data point in general. If you look at it from an infantryman perspective, right? You have ISR feeds coming in. You have radio signals coming in. You have your laptop coming in. You've got your fire support that's coming in. You've got all these assets that you need to manage all at one time. There's all these data feeds that are coming at you all at once. And you know how it gets when you're in combat and it's hard to understand where all your people are, how much ammo they're expending. Do we need a resupply? Who needs a resupply? Who's moving? Who's the support by fire position? Do we have casualties? How are we going to get them back? How are we talking to the aircraft? How is all that information coming in? And I think that AI becomes a an assisted technology in that perspective, because it'll help you kind of understand and visually see where and how everything is working. Like, I mean, you have like the thing that pops down and you can see on a phone exactly where everyone's at. I mean, that right there is a game changer. But in combat, the way that we were brought up, remember, I mean, dude, like you would get in contact and you don't know where the hell the damn bullets are coming from.
No, no, yeah, yeah.
We're getting shot at from where? Like what? And these folks that are always like, oh, I got like 6 confirmed kills, this and that and the other. I always say that's a bunch of bullshit because you do not know where these motherfuckers are shooting at you from.
Right.
And when you're shooting, everybody's shooting. So do we all have confirmed kills? Who knows, right? Like,
Right.
but like, when I hear stuff like that, man, I'm automatically, it sets up the suspect radar. Because if you've been in any kind of situation like that, you don't know what the hell's going on. You're just lucky to be alive. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um,
So what's going on right now? We're in a conflict, and I know you're missing out being a part of the action. I'm sure being a lifer as you were. So what do you think? Just your opinion, man. Guys, Lieutenant Colonel, 25 years in the military. How long do you think we're going to be there?
it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I would like to see us wrap it up tomorrow, to be honest with you. But I just don't. I don't think that's going to happen. I believe that, like I said before, the Iranian regime is very resilient.
Do you think they're tougher than Iraqis? Because they talk about the intelligence. The Persians are I think the freaking dudes invented algebra. So they're have some type of intelligence. It's a much bigger land mass, opposed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and their weaponry might be a little bit better. So compared to what those guys have to what Iraq had that we were fighting for 10 years and then Afghanistan for 20. Are they a formidable foe for us with what you may think? This is just your opinion. I don't need you don't need facts.
Well, I mean, I don't think that they're formidable. Like, I don't think they can defeat us, right? But I believe that they could have a political win, just by sucking us. Like, at the end of the day, if we put troops on the ground, we get sucked in there, right? And then time is on their side. The advantage always goes to the defender. 3-1 or whatever? Yeah. So like, we don't have enough forces in the military to occupy that country. We didn't have enough forces in the military to occupy Iraq the first time or the second time. And we had, and if you remember, in '91 we had over 500,000 troops on the ground in Kuwait. That's bigger than the size of the army right now.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, we don't. Number one, I don't believe that we have the size of a force to occupy a country that size.
Hey, the draft is still in. People still register for the draft. All those 18-year-olds like, well, I got a letter, Mom. I got to go to boot camp or something.
Yeah.
That's how we spin them up, right? Put all the Gen Zs to work. So you think that because of the least amount of fighting force that we have right now, it's not sustainable for us to be in a long-term situation with these guys.
No, and I don't think the American people have the will to put American blood on the ground either. I mean, we lost 7 guys, 6, 7 dudes already, and it's like people are up in arms about it, dude. We used to like during Iraq, we lost 5 dudes a week.
Yeah.
Vietnam, we lost 5 dudes a day. Like, so like, I don't think the American people can stomach another long-term battle, and I would be surprised if it wouldn't be, if we wouldn't be sucked in there into some kind of counterinsurgency like fight, because they watched us the entire. I mean, shit, dude, they killed our guys when we were fighting in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
So they had a lot of time to train and understand our tactics. They know where our weaknesses are. And these troops now, these Americans, our guys, they've got a component that we didn't have to worry about. That's the air component, right? They're getting hit from every angle now. You've got drone warfare, you've got freaking cyber. You've got, I mean, it's crazy. Like when I went forward into Europe, when the Russia and Ukraine thing kicked off, like the biggest surprise to me was the fact that the artillery game was so on point, right? Like,
Wow.
and I would just, and and what we took from our lessons learned from that battle is that we've brought that back into our infantry brigades, and we've made them smaller and quicker and more agile. But now, what can you not do when you're spread apart like that? You can't mass your fires. So
Okay.
now you have to fight. You have to figure out a different way to fight in a small unit and try to mass fires in other ways, whether that's through cyber, EW, or indirect fire, or calling in your joint partners to bring assets to bear overhead. Like you have to try to figure out how to do that. Um, but when we were over there, man, I mean, just any indication of a headquarters location, and you've got Russian artillery coming down on top of you, and vice versa. Like
Really?
it
Okay.
was it was just amazing the amount of death that is happening in that region even today. And I just don't know that I don't think the American people are ready for that.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, let's
No.
hope. I said it when it first started. I was like, yeah, maybe a month, month and a half. I honestly thought after bombarded, after taking one leader after another, that at some point, they'd be like, they get punch drunked, and it's like, that's all right, we've had enough. But these guys have been fighting for generations.
Yeah, they have.
Generations. Their grandfathers were fighting in wars. So I don't know how soon we're going to be able to knock the teeth out of them so they don't want to get up anymore. But it's been interesting to see, that this actually being, nobody wants to call it a war because, Congress has to declare a war and all that. But it's a war, in the actual sense of, of a conflict. But I hope this all ends up pretty quickly, and I just hope we don't have to lose anyone. We lost, the guys that crashed at 135, a week
Mhm.
ago. Now that's never happened. Never had 135s. My father flew 135s. My brother-in-law flew 135s. So it was kind of pretty touching. My brother-in-law was texting me right away. He's like, dude, man, it's like, I'm on the phone right now with people. Just, it was, that's awful. Thankfully it wasn't hit with,
Right.
air defense, which is, I was happy at least happy that they weren't taken out that way. But I was shocked that guys were, I don't know if it was pilot error or what. We'll find out, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Crashed in the air, which is, they don't have air traffic control at that point. So it's just, we're losing lives out there. Nobody wants to have anybody die at all, especially when you have the country so torn apart right now with you've got the deportation stuff going on, people fighting that. Then you got the Iran war going on right now. People are upset about that, saying that we're doing it for Israel. Nobody knows what to believe. So I'm at the point now where I'm just like, look, hopefully this spins down quickly. We get these guys out of there. They get somebody in there that's, not an extremist that wants to get along with everybody, doesn't want to kill everybody around them, because that's what they are. I mean, you've probably heard enough briefings in your career to know that, they don't like us very much.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you brought up a good point that's worth talking about, I think, man. And that is that we're overloaded with information and we don't know what the truth is. We didn't have to deal with that when we were soldiers, right? We didn't have to deal with social media or even cell phones. I mean, I don't even think we had cell phones. Like, I don't
No,
remember.
I had a little Nokia. That's it. Like, it was like you texted like this, like 111 222, and remember that shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't
So
write.
now
You
you
couldn't
got
write
to
a
deal with
paragraph.
AI videos and all this, like.
You had to deal with any of that, So it's completely different the amount of information that these people get, and you're seeing the war firsthand. I mean, every day you go on the internet, you see somebody from Iran or Israel dropping a video they put on their Instagram, front and center of combat. It's mind blowing to see all that. It's I didn't think about taking my phone out, recording anything when shit's dropping on you. I never thought about that. But yeah, everybody's bringing their cameras out there to record all the information. So it's been a pretty wild ride seeing this, from my chair on a laptop and a cell phone.
it's insane. You know, the information warfare is just it's incredible. Like I think one of the most shocking things that I saw, like secondhand, I didn't see it firsthand, but when I was overseas, in during the whole Russia thing, was that they would kill a Russian soldier or they would kill a Ukrainian soldier, and they would pull up the guy's cell phone and call the guy's mother, right? And like from
Ah,
the battlefield, like you know, basically taunt the guy's mother, like I killed your son, kind of thing. Like,
really?
and that is just a different level of psychological warfare, and and I think that that's another element that we have to be concerned with when our guys go out there too. Um, they have to be concerned about no longer is the battlefield contained geographically to where you are, because that information can get back to your family as it's happening, right?
Right. Oh
Live
yeah. Oh
stream an
yeah.
attack on an American base or whatnot.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you remember all those videos that they used to put out, the IED videos and everything, right?
Oh
Just
yeah.
imagine if they were able to post that on social media and get that spinning as fast as as they could now. I mean, the American, we wouldn't have been over in Iraq that long, to be
No. Well,
honest. We'd have
now you
pulled
got
out.
AI videos. Now you've got AI
Yeah.
depicting bombs dropping and people getting blown up, and just like you don't know what to believe. There's been I've posted probably 3 or 4 videos with Netanyahu. Oh, it's AI. No. I guess he just gave a speech this afternoon, so like in front of like whatever a live speech. So people, no matter what you put out, the way he shook hands. Oh, you could tell his hands were all jacked up, and the cup of coffee didn't spill over. Or, this. And this is, and we were kind of in the infant stages of AI. Imagine 5 years from now, 4 years from now, it's going to get the fingers right. The coffee
Yeah.
cup will spill. You won't have any of that anymore in 5 years from now. You won't know what the hell you're watching. And,
No,
there's,
you're not.
there's,
You're
there's going to
not.
be divorces. People, people like, I have a video of you with this woman at a restaurant last night. Like, I swear, man, that wasn't me. I swear it wasn't me. So it's quite astonishing that, from when we went in 25 years ago to
Crazy,
what it
right?
is now. It's information overload with everybody. I mean, now you got Joe being able to, when we went in, when I was in Afghanistan, you had phone banks. You went to the B
Yeah.
hut, whatever. You got to make a phone call home, and I was lucky I had one in my office. I was able to use the phone once in a while, but now they all have cell phones, and everybody has international calling. So they're probably talking, which honestly I think it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Joe call home all the time. Then all of a sudden you try to get a hold of your wife. She's not answering the phone. It's 2 o'clock in the morning over there. She's not answering. Where's she at? So it's the information and the technology we have now. It's good, but I think it could be a hindrance, especially when guys are engaged in some type of combat or battle, because you need everybody's head, and everybody's head needs to be right where it needs to be. They can't be thinking about their wife that was used to be a stripper at home, and now all of a sudden she's not answering the phone when you give her a call, and your mind's just wandering. So
Yeah.
I remember I had a soldier like that. I had to roll to real quick. I had a guy. His wife was a stripper. He was like, Lieutenant, I can't get a hold of my wife. I can't get, I can't find her. I go, what does she do? He goes, well, she strips. I go, oh God. I go, really? I go, you didn't like figure this out before you left, that this might be a problem with you and her being gone. So I can't imagine how many guys are trying to call home, being away, and this shit happened because you have so much access to everything. I had to go
Definitely.
2 a.m. to walk down, 4 blocks to make a phone call. You got to sign in, sign in. You got 10 or 15 minutes on the phone. Then you got shut off. So yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it's good, but it's bad at the same time. And you were in so long, you got to see kind of the whole full circle of what it was like when you went in at as a private to get in as a lieutenant colonel, and the technology and all that. So good, bad. Is it better? You think the fighting force is better now, more well equipped, or is too much
I think
technology and hindrance to what we got?
I think that our fighting force is definitely more lethal now than what it was when we first came in, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
100%. The amount of equipment that the individual infantryman has now is I mean, it is head and shoulders over the LBEs that we had, bro. Like, they've got, they've got the dual, aviator freaking, night vision, and the night vision now isn't green. It's like hot light or whatever, and it highlights it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And the thing is, I've been out of it for so long, I didn't even know it existed. So I went down to DC to some convention, and I was like, "What? This is the night vision?" I mean, I'm in the Army and I've never seen this, right?
Right.
And the new combat weapon that they fielded, or that they're fielding, is just absolutely amazing. Like it really is, man. These vehicles that the infantry guys have now, they're super mobile. I mean, they're like the little doom buggies that the Navy SEALs run around on. And now
Okay.
the infantry squad has them. They're called,
Wow.
I don't remember what they're called, but they're pretty cool looking.
Man.
But I think our guys are much more lethal. Our technology is much more precise. Our artillery systems are more precise, and more mobile. And honestly, dude, I think the soldiers that are coming in the military these days, and just the people in general, like these kids, they're just smarter than we were. They have more information at their fingertips. They're more culturally in tune with things, and they just seem to have a really solid head on their shoulders. Um, and I think we're in a good spot, man. I really do, as a civilization. I just think that we need to harness that out of these kids, and get them moving in the right direction, and let them lead and see what happens.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it, man. I appreciate your insight, Colonel, and getting to talk to you, find out a little bit of your perspective, find out the difference between the Army, what it was like when we were younger. I mean, how much you're well, I'm 53. You're late. You're almost 50, aren't you?
46.
46. Oh, you're that much younger? God, like 7 years.
Yeah.
Man,
Remember, you were the old man.
I was one of the old guys. I wasn't old as that one guy, the captain guy. Remember the guy who came from the Navy? What was that dude's name? I don't remember his name, but he looked like he was 40, that guy. You remember him,
Yeah,
right?
I remember.
So listen, man, I appreciate you joining me today, man. It was been a lot of fun catching up with you and getting your perspective on stuff. I wish you all the best, Colonel, and thank you for joining the Eric 2 conversation, man. You take the rest. Have a great rest of your life, man, and hope we don't take another 24 years until we get a little conversation again. All right?
I know, man. It was good. It was good to see you, man. And thank you. I
All right, brother.
appreciate
Take care,
it.
man.
Thanks for having me.